Good evening.
You well?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Oh, good.
Enjoying the sunshine. That's been nice.
Oh, good, mate. I see. Mr. Asif is maybe jogging. We'll find out later. Sometimes there's a jog Adam on a Tuesday,
Okay.
and ties it in sometimes with this. So he's normally out of breath when he asks a question, which is funny. So that's very interesting. But we'll start with a question because I think he's in there. So I'm looking at about 15 different screens at the moment. A question from Andy Cox, who has joined us this evening. So thank you, Andy.
Evening, Andy.
I'll say the question, Andy. If you want to elaborate any more, please just unmute yourself and add accordingly. I'm just going to do this over here. Oh, there we go. So he asks, targets, too little, too many. What age group to implement? So you probably will need to elaborate. Apologies if I've maybe not said that right. Are you there, Andy? It's all good. It's all good. So he says around targets. He says too little, too many. I assume this is. We'll try and elaborate on that, Adam. So
yeah, I'm just gonna. Oh, Andy, you there? Just something in terms of.
There he is.
There he is.
Oh, we can see you. We can see you, Andy. Oh, just unmute yourself, Andy. There should be a little button with a microphone. There he is. Good evening.
Is that better?
There.
Hi, Andy.
Yeah, you well?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, good. Thanks very much. Yeah, just for 14. I've got some development plans in place around the which I want to put some targets in for the group. They're quite I would say a very strong side. A lot of them are RTCs already, so they're going to challenge me this year. I think I need to challenge them a lot. I'm just wondering, did you put in place at one? Is 14 of an age to start putting targets in place for them for the season? And also touch on how far you would look at targets for players.
It's an interesting one. It came off the back of a conversation just a short while ago, actually, about what sort of players wanted to get out of a season. And there's two ways of looking at it. You can either set a couple of, I would say maybe set team targets and then individual targets and look at it that way. You could maybe have a theme on a different year. So a lot of teams now are starting to have a target, a different target on each season that adds towards their development, as well as individual ones. But also you might want to think about what the actual, I don't know, what the feel of your team is. Ask them what your team feel like is their identity, because then you might be able to link in some of those individual targets and team targets towards the identity of your team. I don't know. I think I think there is definitely sometimes you can have too many. I always look at things in threes, and it might be something they want to start doing, something they want to get better at, and maybe something they want to stop doing or not do quite so much. You could look at it in that way. But certainly there's a variety of different ways of looking at it. But the main thing is, I would say, always involve them in that target setting, because they might have a better idea at what they want to try and achieve. Try and stay away from winning. I think that's a clear one. But actually, what else goes in around it?
Yep.
But yeah, I think 40 is definitely an age where they can still have things that can be set. But yeah, as long as they're involved in that process, then. What sort of things have you done so far?
Generally on targets, I've got wingers that are struggling to get the ball in the box samples. We've done lots of work around, so I've sort of set them targets in a game where let's try and hit a player 3 times, for example. So 3 again, I didn't really work for threes. They always work better. Mm-hmm. But can you hit a player 3 times from one of your crosses? Strikes that are not in the box, example, can you make sure you get in the box at the same time as the cross at times? So I set him some target, but actually, then he changed a little bit.
Ooh,
Okay.
I think we just lost you there.
We're losing you a little bit, Andy, but I get the gist of it in terms of that you want your wingers to start crossing the ball a little bit more, which is absolutely fine. It might be looking at a different way and going, right, actually, if they're not succeeding at that crossing the ball in, how else might we get a better delivery, or how else might we penetrate the penalty area? And it might be that their movement is to come inside more, so then your fullbacks can overlap and they might be the ones that are crossing the ball. So it might be looking at maybe the areas of strength, particularly on the wingers, if they're not being successful with the crosses, think about a different way for them to penetrate, whereas somebody else is crossing, or maybe try them in a different position, because if they're struggling with that type of delivery, then maybe playing a wide position might not be suitable for them at that period of time, because 14 is a period where their strength in their lower body, their body shape's changing. They're going through, some of them might be going through puberty at different times. So when you talked about those four corners, think about that. There may just be something that's stopping them from making that right connection, because they might be going through like a peak growth spurt that's just affecting them getting the right type of delivery. So a couple of things you might want to consider. But I think you're going down the right way of certainly giving them things in games to try and achieve that is completely separate from winning. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to achieve that, or get a more skilled player. Is that everyone says that wow factor that I'm looking for, really, and trying to target plays to get them wow factors, really, in the game.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves to see a great cross going in. I mean, catching up on some of the games from like Euro '96 and stuff, and you see Gary Neville putting a cross onto Alan Shearer's head, and you just think sometimes there's nothing better to see a great cross and a finish from it. But yeah, maybe think about things that I hope that helps in terms of setting targets, things, but just different ways of approaching it potentially.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
No worries, pleasure.
Thank you, Andy, mate. On that, Adam, just quickly, would you use examples of, and you've just said it there, Gary Neville's delicious ball in for Shearer in the Scotland game. Would you use examples of that, and maybe, especially at this time where we can't get out on the pitch, and use that as an opportunity to go and look on YouTube, look at, Beckham, De Bruyne, etc. These wonderful crosses of the ball. Could you use that as like a little bit of homework?
Yeah, you could do, and not be too. I would sort of ask people to go and watch the clips, but not be too specific at what you want them to tell you when they feed back. Because if you say go and look at X, Y, Z when they strike the ball, potentially when you say what did people see, they might just repeat the answer you've given. It might be a case of, go and watch this, let me know what you think. Because some players might go, yeah, it's a great cross, great finish. Other players going, I really love the way he placed his standing foot next to the ball. I really love the angle of approach he came into the ball. So you would get a bit of an idea of what your players understood from what you wanted them to see.
No, totally. Who's the best crosser of the ball in your time watching Arsenal? Who was your favourite?
Arsenal don't cross the ball.
Got ya.
What used to fascinate me when I first started watching football and watching Arsenal in particular is how Paul Merson, even though he played from the left, very rarely used his left foot, but could absolutely whip a ball with the outside of his right foot, just on point every single time, and that used to absolutely fascinate me.
Just on about to go off topic very quickly. Harry's Heroes. Did you watch that?
I haven't watched any of it. No.
He does it
mainly because I think some of it's a little bit staged, but I'm not going to go down that route.
No. But it's good. It's very easy viewing anyway. I would recommend it just to see what the guys are up to nowadays. But Merson is no different. Like, he looks fitter than he was, and that what you're saying, that outside of the foot. He does, well, then you only see clips, but he was doing it continuously, so it's very interesting to say that. But yeah, recommend it. Just
his technique of whipping the ball, and I think he used to wear high-tech boots with these big white flap over tongues. And just that image, just I don't know. It's just absolutely fascinating me.
Good player. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. There's a little hand there, and I think I've just got someone on the chat there. David said he was going to ask That's a big question, Dave. You type in there. This is good. Right, I'm going to read it out just for those maybe who can't see the chat. So he's asking around coach development phase. It was on the back of something you said on the podcast about what you did between doing your level 2 and then later doing the UAPB, and you went to various different places to get a greater experience in coaching. What sort of courses would you recommend for someone like me in grassroots coaching, whether it be inside or outside of the FA? I've seen quite a few non-FA online courses, but not sure whether any are any good, and recommendations are always best. Thinking a mixture of general coaching and more tactical / technical football awareness. And what would you do if you had an aim of doing the UAPB at some point? So if you want to try and answer that, Adam, just because obviously a lot there, but maybe answer the first bit first.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave, for the question. I would say that, and I'm going to try not to be sort of biased and promote stuff here, but because a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is with UK Coaching, we're obviously an organisation that do stuff for generic sports coaches, regardless of what sports you're in. And there's some really good workshops that we're delivering at the moment, and some of those we're trying to work out so we can deliver them online. One of them is coaching children 5 to 12. So if you do work with that particular age group, so it's that foundation phase of what coaching sessions should look like and what they should include, and a little bit of physiology around that as well. There's also courses that are looking at a sort of the holistic approach. So you've got the 4 corner model, but actually it takes away the tech tack and says, do you know what, let's get to know those individuals, and that's called Understand, Connect and Thrive. So you get to understand the individuals that you're working with, not just as a group of people that come to your session, but as individuals, and there'll be lots of things that make them tick, and you would have to adapt your delivery to meet the needs of each one, because everybody would there for, say, for example, to have fun, but everybody's fun looks different. So Dave's fun will be different to my idea of fun, which is different to your idea of fun, Rich. So it looks at coaching the person in front of you rather than the sport potentially. It takes away any type of sport-specific activities. So there are some good workshops out there that are non-sport specific. There's obviously the stuff that the FA are doing, and the PE unit from the FA are doing some really good stuff as well. So again, a different way of looking at delivering football sessions that aren't maybe in a grassroots setting, but in a school setting. So they put a different twist on things. So yeah, there's various different things you can get to, and even looking at other sports. So Dave, I'd suggest you look at stuff that England Hockey are doing. Hockey are bringing out some really good coaches over the last, I would say, 5-6 years, maybe even longer. So the stuff that England Hockey are doing, they've got some real good coach development stuff and courses. So obviously Jack Rolfe, who's done the stuff with the coaching lab, he's done a lot of stuff for hockey as well, and there's a lot of other coaches that are doing stuff.
Are they kind of sort of online courses, those ones, or are they sort of?
Yeah, so most of them are free webinars to go and join in. There's a guy called Coach and Inspire, I think he's called, on Twitter, and he's part of the hockey setup. He's running a lot of sessions. And also there's a couple of guys, Kit Cutter and I'm trying to think, Danny, I can't remember his surname, and they're from an organisation called Boing. And again, it's just fun little games and activities, but taking away the sport specific stuff. So those types of things I would find really, really beneficial, because especially if you're looking at it from a non-football thing and just a pure coaching.
Yeah,
that's what I would look at.
That gap between, Adam, that I think Dave said there about between that level 2 and your A for B, I know you touched on. In terms of like getting that experience, I appreciate when probably not, well, we can't at the moment, but when that does go back up. Mm-hmm. David, is that what you meant? Kind of just spending time down at different places or whatnot?
Yeah, because I think that's sort of, that's, as you say, that's sort of that gap between sort of level 2 and the UAPB, and sort of from a personal point of view, I really enjoyed the level 2 and that sort of that learning and that sort of studying and that sort of process. And then it's just sort of building on that, and then what other places to get. And I think particularly that sort of, this is from a sort of personal point of view, that sort of gap, that sort of technical and sort of tactical stuff, because I haven't got that sort of traditional background in football. I've sort of come to football quite late in terms of that, and it's how to kind of sort of develop that side. I mean, obviously there's brilliant resources on the boot room and various other places through the FA, but are there other places where you can kind of sort of study is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean, to sort of get that sort of knowledge.
Yeah, but like I say, all those different places, say UK Coaching, Sport England, and all those other, the hockey ones, for example, even going on like England handball stuff and looking at some of the ways they deliver, because they deliver slightly differently, because of the nature of where handball has come from. Trying to think of anything else. In terms of experience, for me, I was quite fortunate that I managed to get a job where I was coaching full time, so I could go and work on things and go into various different settings and try things out. I wouldn't say I probably use it to the benefit I would do now. I'd say I'm much more experimental, much more I challenge myself a little bit more nowadays than I would have done then. But I think it's still really important to have that experience of coaching on a regular basis.
Yeah.
David, which club are you at now? Sorry.
Mortonville.
Has anyone in the club recently done UEFA B or done a UEFA B course?
Yeah, there's a couple, but I don't think they were recent ones. I think they were a little while ago. But yeah, there's a couple that have done it.
Well, again, Adam will tell me better than myself, but it's always good, I suppose, to speak to these guys and maybe shadow and see how they set up the session, just to get a better insight. If there's anyone else locally, maybe pick up on. Once we are able to go back, maybe spend some time. Again, it's time, and I'm just assuming you've probably got a full-time job, working in the States in the day. Time is key, and you know, if you have a family as well, it's even more difficult. But yeah,
it is interesting this period of time, because I think there's people out there that have got plenty of opportunity to go. Like I've seen some coaches on Twitter and things, and they're literally spending their whole day going from webinar to webinar to webinar, learning and picking up stuff. And I think there's sometimes a bit of a pressure on every single coach to do that, but we've all got different circumstances. I've got my wife still working, and we've got a small child who won't leave us alone. So somebody has to look after him while the other one's working. So we haven't got all the time under the sun to go and do it. And I feel like I should be doing more to go and learn and pick things up. But at the same time, I've still got to work, and it's a bit of it's just everybody's I saw something the other day where we're not in the same boat, we're in the same storm. Everybody's boat is different. And I thought that was quite nice.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So I think it's just a case of making the best of the time you've got at your disposal at the moment. And then when everything does pop out, seeing what happens. I think in Mortonville, you've got a really nice setup of coaches. Obviously, there's yourself, there's Matt, there's Mike Turner as well. You've got a real nice group of coaches that understand it and get it, potentially take it on to the next level if the opportunity was to come up.
Yeah, so we got Dean Woodhams.
Yes, Dean as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's really good for that.
Yeah, because he's come from a sort of school and coaching background as well, hasn't he, Dean? Yeah.
Yeah. So watching his sessions has been really good.
Yeah, I used to because his son used to go to Gorcott, Brownwood as well so God knows Tom. He must have, I don't know how old he is now, but he's probably got a deep voice and makes me feel really old. Anyway, digressing slightly, but I hope that helps, Dave.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really useful. Thanks for that.
All right.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. And those who are interested, it's finished Borussia Dortmund 0, Bayern Munich 1. If they weren't able
I'm recording it.
Oh, sorry.
No, not really. I haven't got BT Sports.
I felt really bad. Should have asked that question. Spoiler alert. John's just leaving. John's question was next. John's just left. We'll give him, because he's been in a couple of times, so we'll give him another one.
He's joined, he left. I need to catch up with John, actually. I need to apologise, because he asked me a question on Twitter, and I don't think I ever answered it.
Well, this might be the same question. Starts off with Adam. You've not answered this on Twitter, and I'm joking. But we'll leave. I'm going to go to a question that was posted to Mick Lewin a couple of weeks ago, Adam. And just get different opinion. It says, if a player you coach wants to only play in one specific position, would you discourage that to try and develop that child elsewhere, or go with it? And if we just use under 12s as an example.
Again, this maybe link into potentially what I'm going to talk about at the weekend. It depends what environment you're creating. If you create an environment where, yes, you ask the kids, then okay, you're going to get their opinion. That's fine. if you're in an environment where you ask in the kids and they've come and you've also lent your experience to it and decided that you're going to say everybody's going to play in every position, then you expect the children to sort of buy into that. Don't know, it's a bit of a strange one. You could use reverse psychology a little bit and keep them in one particular position, but just rotate everybody else and find out how they deal with it, because it might work on them in a psychological side of things.
I suppose sorry to interrupt. It depends what a specific position is. If you're talking, if it's a goalkeeper, and there's no one else maybe wants to go in, then is that okay? Or if they're talking about a striker, go on.
Same thing. You just got to keep rotating, and that's when we do the courses, normally it is the goalkeeper, and teams go, oh yeah, we're really lucky, we got 2 goalkeepers. Well, you got a squad of 12? Yeah, you got 12 goalkeepers. So what? So everybody has to realise that there will be a time, and it's normally around 14, 15, where you go, do you know what, we're going to go position specific, because you would have worked things out. But up until then, keep it just rotated. And again, it should come from the coach, and you as a coach should make sure your process and thoughts and reasoning is let known by the parents, and get the parents on board as well, because then you'll have 2 people saying to the player, do you know what, you should get the experience of playing in different positions, because it'll be to greater benefit of you. You'll have a better understanding of the game. You have better tactical and technical awareness of other positions, which will only give you greater benefit. And it'll just enhance them better as a player. So
it was interesting. Mick Lewin, those who joined us on Saturday, did CPD session on when to dribble, when to pass, and it was a great discussion around talking about Busquets, people, or Xavi or Iniesta. People wouldn't recognise them as dribblers, but they're keeping onto the ball. But their first touch puts them into positions to maybe get out of trouble and then play it out. So the pass is probably the last thing they have to do that dribbling before.
Yeah.
So if you're a coach and you're saying, "I will put so and so out on the wing because he or she can, practice their dribbling," actually put them in the middle would probably heighten that and have more repetition and be more realistic. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think Mick put a clip of Pirlo on as well a couple of weeks ago and said, "Would you say Pirlo was a dribbler?" And he went, boom, 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 put a clip on there, and it's just like the way he kept the ball, even just the things like dropping the shoulder just to let the ball come across him, but. Yeah, dribbling with the ball in tight areas.
That's fascinated me.
Just looking in different ways.
Andy, Andy's put a question. This was on the other week as well, so it'd just be interesting as well from my point of view. He said, "Could you let me know your thoughts on streaming?" I don't assume he means like Netflix. Yeah.
I think somebody came up with this question. It might have been Asif actually when we did the podcast earlier on. 2 ways of looking at it. Depends on your players. If you've got a real mix in abilities, or an extreme in terms of you've got real good forging ahead, but you've got some that are real striving to keep up, and there is a real mix in parity, or division in parity, I'd say, then you want to make sure that the players who are on both levels, regardless of whether they're forging ahead or striving to keep up, they're playing with players of a similar ability so they can achieve and be challenged on the same level. Because what you don't want is kids that need to be challenged and aren't getting it because they're always having to think about the others. And on the flip side, you don't want the ones that are striving to keep up to keep what they would deem as not achieving because they're not being given the opportunity because there's other players that dominate games. So if you look at it like that, then you want to make sure that they're playing with players of a similar nature and ability. However, you might think, do you know what, scrap that, everybody, we are going to work on our own skills regardless of who is forging ahead and regardless who's coping and regardless who is striving to keep up. We're all going to play together because we can get other strengths from each other. And again, forget the tech-tac stuff. There might be somebody who's forging ahead with technically, tactically, but socially there might be real strivers, or psychologically they might be struggle with losing all the time, whereas you've got other kids that potentially aren't as high ability-wise, but can deal with the mentality of not winning. So if you can put them together and keep them together, there may be different outcomes. So I get the pros and the cons. I mean, it's difficult for me because I've never been in a position in a grassroots club where I've had to either make that decision or be part of it, but I can definitely see the plus points for it. But at the same time, I think it would be better if everybody's included and everybody's playing the game regardless of needs and wants, because you'll get payoffs.
Interesting, though. Thanks for your thoughts. I hope that helps, Andy. Good evening, Elliot. I assume he's just coming after the Classico. To his thoughts. Elliot, if you have a question, or if anyone else has a question as well, please just type or raise your hand, and we'll get you in there. And thanks, Elliot. Let me know if you enjoyed. I only watched the first half. Question for you, Adam. I know those. If you haven't listened to his podcast, by the way, I see there's a question coming in, so I'm going to pause my question.
That's fine.
We'll pause that. Dave says, what do you think we would need to be aware of after the lockdown period, and how would you approach the first few sessions back?
How would you approach the first sessions back, Dave?
I think it'll be more around the kind of sort of the social side, and just sort of getting them back, because they weren't seeing each other for so long, and just get them back to sort of loving and enjoying football, and maybe not being too sort of intense in terms of sort of coaching approaches and that sort of thing, and just letting them play and just sort of rediscover themselves again after that. So that's kind of sort of the way I was looking at it.
Yeah, too right. Go and play a game. See you later.
Yeah.
We were talking about this. So Tom Hartley, one of the other tutors, we've just been having a bit of a conversation with a couple of coaches that he sort of met along his pathway, and there was a couple of people. There's one coach from Sweden, so they're back coaching and back playing now, which they're loving, because it's been a bit easier for them over that way. But there's a couple of guys from Ireland, and a lot of people that have been working with Arsenal women. And we were all sort of discussing about what our first session back is going to look like. And we were pretty much all saying, you know what, let's just, whoever it is, just let them have a game and just and just show each other the things they've been learning over the last couple of months or whatever it's been. And just have that little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
I think, and something else I think came off the podcast, or I was having another chat with people, is that I really hope that when this all comes to an end and we can get out and play again, that the importance of winning is totally irrelevant, and people are so keen to get back to playing and back to coaching that actually that's the bit they've missed, not the winning. It's that whole nature of it, and that's the vibe I was getting certainly really at the beginning of the lockdown. Obviously it's gone on longer than people have imagined, so you would hope that they still have that sort of hunger and drive to go out and play, be part of that coaching environment again, whereas winning just becomes an additional.
Yeah, I was thinking as well, in terms of sort of maybe a bit sort of further down the track, is just kind of sort of managing their expectations a bit as well, because they'll have all been in different situations during lockdown, and may not have been able to get out every day and play football, and they might not have a big garden that they can play in and that sort of thing. And then sort of the things that they could do before football stopped, they may not be able to do as easily now. So they've got to have patience with themselves as well as us, as sort of everybody else.
Yeah, and I think us as coaches have got to be quite clever in how we maybe design our practices now, because there's potentially going to be the chance where kids are going to go back to playing recreational sport, but there will still be stipulations on quite tight social distancing and things. So actually, how are we going to design a practice so there is limited contact with players, but we still get other payoffs in terms of tactical awareness and psychological outcomes and things like that? So are we going to have games with grids and just conditions, maybe a lot more game-related practices, but with maybe zones and things like that? It's still something that's quite, people are sort of throwing ideas out there, but that's something that as coaches we're going to have to be a little bit creative with.
Yeah.
That comment you said there, Adam, on that, it was probably 2 months ago now. It was early April we spoke, didn't we, on the pod? And you said that then about you hope that football becomes less about winning, more just about enjoying it. That stuck with me personally since you said it. So hopefully those guys are listening as well, I've no doubt have bought into that and already about developing, and not about that winning is not important, but not always important. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. What do you see? How would you go about, just adding to David's question there, beyond that first few sessions then? So whenever it will be, lockdown subsides, I know you touched on there, we don't know what the social distancing guidelines will be and what that will look like, but just let's go best case scenario, full contact. After about 4 or 5 sessions you've been in, would you then start bringing the stuff back in as you were doing, or would you try and keep it?
Potentially. I still think the creative side's got to come out from everybody, and I think you want to give a little bit more autonomy to the players, a bit more, and that's something that I've definitely been working on over the last, 6 or 7 years since I've been coaching, just allowing players to have more of an input and letting them drive it. I heard a comment the other day saying actually it's not the coach's game that the players are sort of joining. It's not the players' game that the coaches are joining in. It's like a real 50-50, and we have to make sure that both parties are getting what they want from it, and both are developing in the same way. So I think it's just a case of giving the players a little bit of more freedom and a bit more power to choose things, but as coaches we need to mould and guide that in the right direction, and just try new things. I think that's always the good thing, try new things. And I'll echo it again, the creativity that's been brought out over the last couple of months has been fantastic, and if that carries on post COVID-19, then sport in general will be the better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of just from my own personal point of view, it's like connecting with people I wouldn't have connected, and that's obviously gone far wider, and people have been able to do that. So and develop. So I think it's although it's been sad and difficult, especially with the number of lives that have been lost and affected, I think it's been, there is a silver lining so much that we're able to do stuff like this and continue talking.
I was going to say that actually, in terms of these sessions, I have emailed you, Richard, about it, but I mean these sessions have been brilliant. I know we can't keep doing them at the frequency that we have been doing them, but just to sort of have people together and just having a sort of chat, and on the either sort of like this or on the chat box, you just pick up so much stuff and so much sort of good ideas. It's been really good.
Definitely. Thank you, David, for your feedback.
I think that has been really key in terms of that type of stuff, connecting with each other.
Well.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, and I think just speaking from you, Andy, I know that Ascot are, I think you're Ascot, top of my head. You've been doing your own little Q&A, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we've got 26 coaches in on every Wednesday evening doing our own Q&As, bringing people in, and it's been great. I've learned so much. I did my level 2s 2 years ago, and again changed jobs, went into a lot busier. I still work hard putting good sessions together, I believe, but actually the time I've had now in the last 2 months to actually learn new stuff is really opened my eyes. That sort of stop stand still scenario, less cones. A lot of that's come out of the last couple of months. So yeah, really enjoy Pete Sturgis and all sorts. Being available. When would we be able to get in front of the likes of Adam, and that again is the question.
Totally, and I think you've been listening to Mick Lewin too much talking about cones.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, he's been on quite a few podcasts, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's a good guy, Mick. But I think just touching on what both David and you said that, Andy, is things probably might stick around as well. So I know from our point of view at Barts and Bucks, it's actually, there is an audience. So once this is all back, is it? It won't be, as David already alluded to, the amount that we're doing. But is there, an option of a bi-weekly or a monthly catch up online, and what that looks like, etc. Talking of catch up online, look at who's just joined us, Mr. Mark Rivers. Good evening, Mr. Rivers. He's just turned his camera on. Hasn't done his hair. But no, yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I suppose just keep talking. You guys have spoken on the chat a lot, and it's been great. So yeah, John McCann's not come back yet, but I've got a question for you, Adam.
Yeah, far away.
20 minutes left of your time. You coach a lot of sports, which for those people who haven't listened to Adam's podcast, head to YouTube. It's a very good listen. How do you, and I know you're going to touch it on Saturday, and I just want to suppose give you a chance to talk about that, what you're doing on Saturday in our session. But it's so much that, does the sport matter? or is it the environment key? Like, so do you set up an environment for whether it be handball? You do rounders as well, don't you?
And
Football.
boccia. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of what boccia is, but yeah,
Go
sport for cerebral palsy.
Is that the one with the box?
Yeah, so it's a I'm trying to what word is it? It's a modified version of bowls for people with cerebral palsy, so limited movement, some with no upper body movement at all. And it's I did a lot of stuff with people with disabilities. So in my time between sort of work in football and other sports, did a lot of stuff working with those with a disability. And actually, boccia was a sport I loved because it's so simple, the concept. But in terms of there's competition, you can play doubles, you can play singles, you can play teams of 3 against each other. So many different outcomes and variables in it just by throwing some balls at a jack. It's unbelievable, and it's all from a seated position. But I just fell in love with it, and just the opportunity to be a tutor in boccia came up, and actually I think it's something that I've been looking forward to. Unfortunately, we literally went on the training like 2 weeks before lockdown, so we haven't been able to do much. But for me personally, I find my strength is about setting that environment, and I did mention it on the podcast. So give me any scenario or any subject, and I feel I could set something up. I might not have all the information, but I feel like I think that is one of the most important things: setting up the right environment for learning to take place or engagement to take place or whatever it might be. So the rest just comes naturally. And that's why I think I've been able to go and fit into different situations and different scenarios, because
sorry, go on.
So I haven't been sort of limited in only doing something one way, but equally being able to bring those skills and things that I've learned from others, the other areas and other sports, and apply them to a football setting or whatever it might be. So transfer those things across.
Has it made you a better tutor? Or developed you further?
Yeah, I think so. Always still learning as a coach, or definitely learning as a tutor. I mean, this whole online stuff has been a real eye opener for me, because I wouldn't have even thought about delivering sessions online, and now I'm delivering sort of 4 or 5 trying to engage people that sometimes I can't see them. They're not talking. Whereas I could in a group in a classroom, I could go to the table and have that conversation, whereas in this point it's completely different. But just how you can still make it as engaging for the learners as you possibly can, but via a different means, and I've just found that to be really, really interesting.
Definitely, and I can only imagine. Obviously, I don't deliver courses, but that whole just picking up maybe someone's body language or eye contact, whether I need to move on or I need to open up more about this, that must be quite difficult when you can't see anyone.
Yeah, but it's just getting that rapport with those in the end. So I had a guy this morning, and he was the first to log on, and I was like, "Morning, Michael, how you doing?" He was like, "Morning." I was like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "It's early." It was 9:30. And I said, "Oh, is it because it's after the bank holiday?" He goes, "Nah, it's just early." But I had something to refer back to in terms of tiredness throughout the course, and he seemed to quite enjoy it. And so there was that ongoing joke between myself and him about him being so tired. So that sort of stuff's quite good. So you get to have conversations with people all over the place, but still build a rapport and build an environment that they're comfortable to come out of their shells a little bit.
No, definitely. And I think, and I've written this down earlier because you mentioned it, and it's mentioned on pretty much, I think we've done like 35, 40 of these, literally every single one. It's about knowing your players, and you alluded to it there, where you're talking about knowing the people that you're delivering to, so your audience. Why does it always bottle down to knowing your players? So obviously I know why, but like, why? Like, why is that the key to success? You always hear like of Sir Alex Ferguson, Wenger, these guys that get the most out of their players. But is it because of that individual, how they're made to feel?
Yeah, you've just got each individual is completely different, and what makes them tick and what they've been going through in on a certain day can be vital to how you treat them, and also how much they're willing to tell you as well. I think as a coach or a tutor, you have to be able to look at those soft skills and have those conversations that are completely as far away from football as possible, as far away from the sport you're dealing with as possible, to find out what makes them tick. So I asked a lot of random questions. So like today I had a picture in my orientation, and it was a broncos. What was it? I can't remember. It was just a dinosaur basically with a long neck.
Bronchosaurus.
Bronchosaurus, I think it was. And it was either should they wear their tie at the top or should they wear their tie at the bottom of their neck? And it was just a ridiculous question, but it got so much of the other tutors just discussing about where this tie should go. And it was proper random, and the conversation then went on to various different things. So we were talking about something that's completely irrelevant from the subject we were talking on, but I got to hear from people that potentially through the first part of the workshop were quite quiet. So I think sometimes it's really important that we just take football or whatever sport is and take it out of the equation, and just find out how somebody is. And I think this situation that we've been in has been great for that, because I think there's an advert on telly where a woman's interviewing herself, or she's giving a message to herself in like 3 months' time, and she says, "How are you?" She said, "No, generally, how are you?" Because at the moment we are really asking that because we want to know how people are. But I think that should be the case all the time. If you're asking how somebody is, you're right. You should be asking because you really want to know.
This is me and Rivo speak about this quite a bit. So it's like that whole thing, and I'm guilty of it, but I'm trying to change. Is like, "Oh, hi Adam, how are you?" on like an email. But I do actually want to know how you are, but it's auto type. But it's rather not. I don't know. Do you have a good weekend, or how's your little? Do you know what I mean? Just making that whole personal things. Me and Rivo are trying to make an effort to try and personalise our hellos.
Yeah, I just had one from another tutor organised on course. She said, "Oh, how are you?" And I thought she's asked that at the beginning because she does that normally. But so I answered it right at the beginning, and then rather than saying, "How are you doing?" I answered her question, and then at the end of the email I put, "How are you?" So that was the last thing she read rather than the first thing, and then forgot about it because she'd read the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it's just changing the order in where you place stuff.
I like it. It's a lot of some stuff that's come in the chat here as well. Elliot said that's the biggest thing I've developed in recent years. I'm assuming that's about knowing the players. Dave says, "I always remember that advice you gave to ask them how was your day when they arrive at training. A really good way to get an instant idea of how they might be feeling."
Yeah. I've got these cards and I've used them a couple of times on like level 2 course, and I've been using them with my little boy recently because he's been having a little bit of that. But yeah, I sometimes put these cards out and get them to write their names on how they're feeling that day. So we've got like if they're feeling happy, so they write their name on it, or what else? Are they feeling hurt or sad? And there's loads of other different ones like tired and sleepy. But it's to find out on people's emotions. But you can start conversations from that. Just from them writing their name on a little card, you can go, "Oh mate, why are you feeling tired?" I did it on a course, and this guy was like, "Oh, because I came down from Leeds last night and I didn't book a hotel, thought I'd get one easily, and now I realise that in London you can't just get a hotel like that. So I slept in my car and then woke up in the morning and I've been clamped." It's like, oh, man.
The fact that you remember that though.
Yeah, so everybody, his name was Mo, and everybody just had this sympathy for him. So the next time we all got together, it was like, "Did you get clamped again this time, Mo?" He's like, "No, I made sure I got a massive room this time."
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot more can be spoken about it. Andy says, "We have a great captain that is great feeling about problems players are having. Some are too scared to voice concerns." I assume that's maybe to the coaches. Do you touch on that on Saturday about the environment, including that about creating that environment to enable players to feel comfortable to share?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes it's difficult because you might be inheriting a team. So you've got to potentially work with what you've inherited with and try to put your stamp on it in a gradual way. There may be times where you've actually just started a team or your team has been yours for a period of time, so you're able to put your stamp on things. So it just depends what situation you're in. But yeah, you really want to have that so that, and it's part of safeguarding really. You want to create an environment where kids are really happy and will talk to you about anything. So actually, one, you get to notice if their conversations start to change slightly, because then you might have a concern. But you also can feel that they'd be happy to come to talk to you should there be a problem. And it's just making sure you're approachable to everybody in the group.
I suppose that built over time, is it?
Yeah.
Trust, and I suppose it's great though, Andy, that you're able to that whole player ownership, and that your captain there is able to, they're able to confide into them, and over time, hopefully that will continue to improve as well.
Yeah, it's quite nice to sort of options. So you can come to me as a coach straight away, or if you feel it's easier, speak to, like, it could be a senior player or whoever it may be, to let if you're happy for them to let the coaches know, then filter it on.
Yeah, I'm not going to name drop, but I recently spoke to a former club captain at a top club, and they were saying how much they spent. So the manager does the manager thing, and then this was 20 years ago, so it might have evolved since then even further. But that captain is making sure that new players are okay, in terms of, like, I think they obviously now have player liaison officers as well, but just that whole, like, that environment, making sure that they're comfortable, and so that football, they're allowed to do something that they enjoy rather than worrying about maybe different bits and bobs. But again, it's that knowing your players, isn't it? Elliot says, I love the quote, they only care how much you know when they know how much you care. They only know, I'll say it one more time. They only care how much you know when they know how much you care. Decent quote, Elliot.
Yeah. And it's just remembering things. The next time when you chat to somebody, you say, like, oh, how was your night out? How was that Chinese you said you were going to have last night? Or just anybody who might, because on the level 1s and level 2 courses, I've had people that have come. That was one guy that he turned up and he just pulled me aside. He said, Adam, look, just wanted to let you know I've had a family bereavement last night, but I feel I've had a chat with my family, and I think it's really best that I'm here today. And I was like, absolutely, I'm really sorry. I'm really glad you're here. But if at any point you need to chip off or take time out, do it. I said, do you want me to let the others know, or do you want? He goes, no, I might tell them, but if I do, I'll choose to do it myself. And he was like brilliant. And I kept just checking in with him through the day and saying, just like little thumbs up. And I knew if he was all right, and he'd just go, yeah, I'm all right, I'm good. Yeah. And just those little things, to have that empathy and sympathy with others.
I suppose, was that the first session, or was that maybe 2 or 3 in?
It was the 3rd session, so it would have been workshop 5 and 6 of a level 1.
Which is important, I suppose. But he felt, obviously, the sad news that he'd gone through, but that what you'd created there, and the group as an 18 would something that maybe that distracted him. But
yeah, and it was quite nice. He felt like he could just chat to me about it and not hide it, but also felt that he would be comfortable and safe in that environment. So, and again,
that's testament to you, though. I don't know, the environment that you create them.
Yeah, but that comes with a lot of hard work. It's not.
Azif says, the long neck and tie thing is a great way of getting people to justify the why. For me, by the way, it'd always go at the bottom, because then it would match the shirt and be closer to the shirt.
But I had somebody today say that apparently a tie is supposed to put more focus on your face, because the tie you start at the bottom tie, look up, and that's your face. So you want to have it as close to your face as possible. So these are the stupid chats we had, but it was just brilliant.
If you put a down or up on your chat, we'll just to take a quick vote, Adam, that'd be decent, wouldn't it? As coaches, we are good at telling someone what to do, but can we help them understand why they should do it? If not, we need to work on our own understanding first. So that whole why, Adam, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, but sometimes players might give sort of generic feedback, and like I say, it's a lot on courses. Like, you might get a kid to say, they'll say communication. You get a lot of generic answers. You've really got to try and tap into and think about how you ask the question. Because if you ask a question slightly differently, you might get a completely different answer.
And I know Asif's a father as well, like myself and you, Adam. There might be a few more on the call as well. I was a coach before I was a parent, but they do cross an awful lot. So like I've got 3 children. I've probably told a few times. I've got 2 twin boys who are 5.5, and my daughter who's 2. And the 5-year-old's now cotton on. They need to know why they're doing something.
Yeah.
So as a parent, you're like, because I told you so. Like that's the stereotypical answer. But actually, I'm trying to change the way I communicate, and maybe saying, look, tell them why. Try and do that first before telling, so there's no kick off.
Yeah, it is interesting with that whole why thing, and my wife's interested in that sort of like the psychological stuff, and one of the reasons why that kids get to a certain point and they ask why is because they know you're going to give them an answer because they want to hear your voice. So it's their way of making sure that you are listening to them, but also so they're getting your voice back. So our little lad at the moment, he's going through a phase of wanting stuff potentially that isn't his, but thinking that he's got something when he hasn't. So he'll say, "Where's my green rhino?" We're like, "You haven't got a green rhino, darling. We have to get you one, won't we?" He goes, "Yep." "Where's my blue rhino?" "You haven't got a blue rhino, darling, have you? We'll have to see if we can find one." And then he'll just go through the same pattern, but he just loves having that. It's just his way of having a conversation with us. And we've really noticed it over the last sort of 8 weeks, how much his sentences have gone from sort of 4 words to 5 words to 7 words to now potentially 8 to 10 words in a sentence, because he's just constantly talking back to us. So yeah, sometimes the why is because they do want to know, but other times it's because they just want you to want that little bit of confirmation that you are there and you are listening to them.
That's good. How old is he?
2.5.
Decent sex. Yeah, my daughter's the same age.
Yeah.
So go on.
Terrible twos, which we thought started early, and now it's going on longer than we ever could imagine. We're like, terrible twos at 1.5, brilliant, get them out of the way. Jeez.
they go into the terrible threes as well, mate. Don't worry. Elliot says it's the same with a session plan. Are you doing it for you or the coaches? So I think you touched on this maybe before Elliot joined us, around making sure the session is right. Or was it actually after the lockdown thing? But yeah, the session's maybe half and half right for them and coinciding right with the coach as well.
Yeah, I think so. And you've always got to look at it and go, would I want to play this? And if you look at it and go, no, screw it up, throw it away. Yeah, it's got to challenge you as well as the players, because the players are the ones eventually that they might start doing things that making you as a coach go, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So now I've got to think about how I'm going to work in that situation. So you've always got to make sure that you're being tested and challenged as much as the players. And that's why it's really important that we do think about what we're delivering, not just go, oh, what am I going to do tonight? Oh, yeah, that'll do. I'll do this. We've got to think about really how it can test the players, but as well as coaches. Something that I potentially don't even do enough of myself.
Yeah, and that's a whole time factor. So if you have got, family or a full-time job during the day, it's that trying to find your time to enable you to do that. And obviously that is difficult, and there will be sacrifices made. But I suppose the outcome will be far greater for the amount of time you put in. But yeah, challenging. Elliot says it's a great tip. Try and start the session with something unrelated to football. Kids will always want to tell you when they are going to a party, etc. after.
There you go. And then the next week you can say, what did you wear to the party?
Yeah.
I
was fancy dressed dinosaur with a tie at the top.
I've done loads of football parties before where a kid would always turn up in like his shirt and jeans, and I'll be like, oh, didn't they get the invite to the football party? And they're like, no, this is his party outfit. Regardless of whether they're playing football or not, he's going to a party. This is what he wears to a party. It's like, fair enough.
I'm coming back to Andy's point in a sec. Dave says, as a people manager at work, I was told that if one of your team asks for a chat, always say yes there and then. No matter what you're doing, you never know what they want to say and what's going on in their lives. Same applies to players. If they want to speak to you, no matter what it is, always make time for them. I think it's great. That whole transferable skills, especially like from managing, is definitely there, Adam, isn't it? Across all walks of life.
Across everything, and regardless of whether it's sport or not, there's always, you have a role to play, and that role isn't just to sort of look after people within a work environment. There'll be other things that will come into play as well. And I think maybe the role of manager is changing slightly across all forms of sort of business and sport, regardless of that, rather than it being that sort of hierarchical person who does have to lead from the front to some extent, but in a variety of different ways, rather than being that I'm the powerful leader. It's looked at in a completely different way in terms of what their role has become.
Yeah, Elliot says, I would say that extends in feedback too. We've probably all done it to them and what we want them to think and speaking over them.
Yeah, I did when I did my handball level 2, the guy who assessed me, he said, so how did he goes, that's a great session, well done. How do you think your question and answer went? So I thought it went really good actually. That's probably one of the strongest parts of my session. He went, okay, you might need to think about how you do it though. So wasn't it? Because you ask a question, which is brilliant. You allow the learners to give you a little bit of an answer and then you jump on it and do the rest of it yourself. And I was like, wow, never even knew that. And so from that moment on, I'd always have Bobby on my shoulder. Whenever I'd ask a question, just have him there going, let them answer, let them answer, let them answer. Or elaborate, ask them to go, okay, but just put a little bit more on there, or pounce to somebody else to find out whether they would be able to give a bit more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tough one, real tough one, but yeah.
And it says, we've got the last couple of minutes before we'll be finished. But Elliot says, I've got a dog now and I don't know if I'm going mad, but I can relate it to coaching so much. There you go.
It's loads of it, absolutely loads of it. And like pets and to kids, I'm questioning them how I talk to my child every single day. And am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? It's just mad. It just messes with your head. But
it really is. And do you know what? Everyone's different, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. You've done a good job, Elliot. Keep it going.
Yeah.
I just want to finish on Andy, because I just want to get Andy in if he's still here. He says, came across Who Wants to Be a Millionaire method in Q&A. Great idea for players that struggle to answer questions. Are you still there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm still here.
That's a great idea.
I just wanted to finish on this because I think it'd be decent just to share, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, I've come across it. I've been coaching for about 5 weeks at Ascot. I've got a whole of next season, obviously, to get to grips with. Hence my streaming question. There's going to be some streaming within the squad this year, and we've got under 14 girls. We've got 3 teams, but some were really striving ahead. So I'd ask the question, and people would come piling in very, very quick. And others would obviously not give any sort of answers. So what I'd done was I sort of buddied up a what I would call a developing player with a player that was streaming ahead. Asked a question, but they had to answer together. So for example, they had a 50-50. If they didn't get the answer, I gave them 2 options. Then I got them to ask a friend, which was someone next to them. And then I got them to ask the team rather than the audience. So again, it was just a free way, and it was a lot of fun actually at the end of the session.
That sounds like, yeah, that's the important bit, I suppose. You said that at the end.
I've written that down on one of my heart things. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire concept? I've written it down. That's one thing I'm keeping. Andy, top man.
See, the most important thing, I suppose, it's fun, isn't it, Andy, as well? And that's the key there.
It is. Yeah. And another tip that I saw as well was obviously Fortnite. I don't know a lot about Fortnite. There's been a lot of reference to using coaching skills around Fortnite, for example, rather than PlayStation. You press F1, for example. So Fortnite is another way, really. I've got to get my head around Fortnite before I take any of that into any sort of coaching.
Yeah, I'm not all there with Fortnite either. Adam, you look like someone who plays Fortnite. You not?
Well, no, I haven't even got a console. I haven't even got anything. Like, the last thing I had was a PS2. I had a group of kids saying, "Oh, sir, what do you play on your PS2?" And I'm like, SingStar. And they're like, "What? What? You haven't got a PS4? What do you do in your spare time?" I was like, "Yeah, go away."
It is. I used to play SingStar a lot, mate, but I've heard you can sing when I can't. Elliot says it's a good one for spreading out and getting compact Fortnite. So I do know there's a zone closes, which has got me thinking I might put a webinar on sharing practices like this, because I think it'd be really useful, especially from my point of view, getting different practices. But I don't want to take any more time. But Andy, are you still there? So I just want you to touch on. Just finally to finish on, and I've lost your message, what the girls down at Ascot are doing for charity?
Yeah, so basically they're running 915 miles, obviously virtually across every Premier League ground. They're doing it for the NHS and charity. and what it has done is suddenly a lot of them are getting down. It's got them all together. They're on their own WhatsApp group. We've allowed them just to take control of it, feedback how many miles they've done a day. In 4 days they achieved Newcastle to Burnley, which was 99 miles between 15 of them.
Brilliant.
So it's, we're not putting any pressure on how many miles they do, how long it takes. They've just taken ownership of it and run with it. So it's great.
Oh, fantastic. And if people were interested in donating, just visit your website, is it?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Yes, that's Ascot United. So no, well done, and well done to the girls as well. That's fantastic. Thanks, Adam, for this evening. I appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Sorry, I tend to waffle on and ramble on a little bit. Apologies, everybody.
Not at all. You didn't lose anyone that were on this from the start. So
we lost John. We lost John. I need to get John back.
I'll send you his questions so you can maybe message him. But no, thank you. Really, really good. Great for those who joined us. Elliot says, sorry, you can play games like King of the Ring and the Area Shrinks, etc. We need to look into do a webinar to share some good games because I think
there's loads of good stuff on gamification. Amy Price does stuff for the FA. Obviously, Tom's another one that loves gamification stuff as well. So yeah, there's loads of different ways on how to link computer game style practices to sport and stuff. So yeah, loads of stuff out there.
Definitely. Adam, you're back on Saturday,
yes.
10 o'clock, creating the environment.
Yeah, I better put my presentation together.
If you need me, let me know. But guys, thanks again. Stay safe and look after yourselves. And don't forget Chris Ramsey tomorrow, Q&A. 7 o'clock, those who are interested as well.